One of the outstanding new features in Pt.2 is the addition of audio loop-based drum parts. These audio drums, or real drums, can be used to substitute for instances in which MIDI drums would otherwise be used. You can also change the global volume settings from this screen. Pushing the play button will generate an accompaniment containing the real drums. It's worth noting that the real drums do very well with changes in tempo. Loading your ensemble is also referred to as loading a multi. Multis are files which consist of individual instrument assignments. By default, the multi-files are found in a rather cryptic folder location, and I prefer to keep them in a shortcut directory on my desktop. That way, when I go to the Load Save tab, I can easily find them. Selecting OK to the option to replace the multi results in an entirely new MIDI instrument ensemble. Here we're watching individual pitch samples loading up. These sounds are all being loaded into the red strips that you see on the screen. Our new multi for this song is now loaded. We can make any volume changes that are necessary. Using a MIDI controller, you can enter very specific parts into the melody track, as has been done with the bass part here. In this example, the real drum style is playing with brushes. The acoustic bass is playing in a 2 feel. This is made possible by Pt.2's sub-styles, which we'll be looking at soon. Notice also that there's no chordal instrument such as guitar or piano playing. With its chord settings options, Pt.2 effectively allows you to arrange and orchestrate your accompaniments. Chords listed in red indicate a rest in at least one instrument. Chords listed in black will be performed by all instruments. To change the properties for a chord, first select it, then go to Edit, Chord Settings. This is perhaps one of the most important menu options in the program. The menu has radio buttons for beats 1, 2, 3, and 4, so you can be very specific about where you want to make changes for each chord's properties. There's also an area dealing with chord pushes or anticipations. Chords which have been pushed will be highlighted in green. If you want to rest certain instruments only, there's an area in the Rest section dealing with excluding certain instruments. For example, if I select all instruments except bass and drums, I can expect that the bass and drums will play on the given chord. There's also a pull-down menu which allows you to select from one-hit shots or holds. As we heard with the bass instrument in the previous example, each style has its own sub-style. Using a particular sub-style might introduce another instrument to the accompaniment, or it might simply change the way one instrument is playing in the accompaniment. To change the sub-style, I simply click on the measure number as shown here. Here I'm making tiny adjustments to the accompaniment tempo. This is done with the arrow keys. Or I can double-click on the metronome marking and type in my own tempo. For those wishing to tap in your own tempo, you can do so with the 2 buttons located to the side of the metronome marking. Here we have a section which is being repeated or looped. This is to allow for more improvisers on a section. Toggling the fake sheet view box, I can now see the form in a more linear fashion. The form of the tune is expanded and viewable in a gray area. This is very useful if I need to start playback at a particular soloist.
Come here.
Pt.2 makes it very easy to adjust your accompaniment for added solos. Here we have a 12-bar section. We're highlighting that section and we're going to go to the Repeats tab. Clicking on the Repeats radio button, I change the number of repeats to allow for additional soloists. The new number of repeats is reflected on the main screen, and it's highlighted in red. Clicking on the soloist button will generate an instrumental solo based on the chord progression. This can be useful if you're missing group members from your rehearsal. The Suggest button will call up a list of instruments appropriate for the style and tempo of your accompaniment. You can then select one of these instruments, say Jazz Vibes, indicating the range of measures to be soloed over by pushing the Custom button, which pulls up this window. Click on Generate Solo Now, and the accompaniment begins again, this time with the added virtual solo. Having created a solo idiomatic to a particular instrument, we now need to assign the sound so that the playback of the solo is accurate. People who are new to MIDI often complain about hearing wrong instrument sounds, and that's why we're here. I'm in the Contact player, which is responsible for handling all of my DXI instruments. Going to the Instrument tab, I go to Keyboard and Vibes and select the vibraphone, as this was the type of solo that I'd created in the soloist screen. And here we see the vibraphone samples loading in one by one. The last and very important step is to assign the proper MIDI channel. Each red instrument strip has its own MIDI channel pull-down. I select channel 8 since that is Band in a Box's default solo channel. I'm also free to change the volume of the soloist here, as well as panning. Now that we have a new ensemble of virtual players, we can click on the Load Save tab. As shown earlier, I created a shortcut to all of my multis. I saved the new ensemble Splanky Vibes, and my new instrument ensemble name is listed here. Going through the step of saving your new multi-ensemble can save you time later on. Pushing play, I now hear the solo performed by the vibraphone. What you're hearing right now is one of the coolest new features in Band in a Box. Band in a Box expands the virtual soloist category with RealTracks. Click the same soloist button that we demonstrated earlier. From the list that appears, select soloist number 361, RealTracks. Unlike MIDI soloists, RealTracks does not need a MIDI channel assignment. Simply select the solo region, and you're set to go.